Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel Rusty's Mustang Garage. This is going to be part 11 in a series of videos that I am doing restoring a 1965 Mustang Coupe. It's going to be more of a Restomod than a restoration. I'm going to be improving some things along the way. As you can see right now, it is up on the Jig, and we'll show you how we went from this to this. Okay, so today's plan is to get the car mounted on the Jig, and let's see what we got to do. Okay, so we have the car all uncovered. The Jig is ready to be put on the floor for the last time. You've seen me raise and lower that off the sawhorses a couple dozen times, so I'm not going to bore you with that too much. So the plan today is going to be to lift the car up high enough and put some blocks underneath it to hold it. And at that point, the idea will be to roll the Jig underneath it, pin it in place, and put everything back down on the ground safely. So let's get to it. Okay, the Jig's on the ground, and we're gonna get ready to put the car up on top. First thing I have to do is pull the front suspension off. It's gonna be too heavy with that on there, so we're gonna pull that off. And then after that, we will go ahead and pull the rear axle out. And at that point, it'll be pretty much just a bare shell. All right, I've got the hood and the fenders off. They were just really held on by one or two bolts. As you can see, everything is off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start taking the front suspension off. The springs and shocks are already out. All I really have to do is pull the control arm bolts out for the upper and lower control arms and disconnect the steering linkage from the pitman arm. So that's what we're going to start on next. After a little banging and swearing, I got the steering linkage off the frame. They're still connected to the two different sides. I'll have to separate that once I get everything drug out from under the car, but right now this is easier to do it this way. So what's next is I'm going to pull the bolts out of the control arms, and hopefully each side should just drop off. Okay, to take each side off, basically, we're going to take 2 bolts out of the strut rod. That will separate the strut rod from the lower control arm. Then we're going to pull all the bolts out of the control arms, and everything should just drop right off. So, let's get to that. Oh, that's not tight. Alright, let's try this again with a breaker bar. Okay, now that the strut rods are off, we're going to take out these 2 bolts, this bolt, and that side of the suspension should come off. Alright, all the bolts are out, and this should just come right out. Yeah, okay. That's what they say, at least. Alright, front suspension is off. Alright, as you can see, the front suspension has been pulled off. It's just sitting there on the ground. I'll take it apart later and kind of put it away a little more neatly. Now, it's time to move on to pulling the rear axle out. I'm going to pull it out all as assembly, springs attached to the axle. The 2 front bolts in the leaf spring are loose. They're new pins. They should come out pretty easily. And then from there, I'm just going to remove the shackles from each side and just roll the whole thing out as a unit. All right, that's one side. Moving on to the passenger side, hopefully this side is easier. All right, let's see if this comes out easier. All right, there we go. Now to pull out the two front bolts. As you can see, I've pushed the bolt partial way through. The spring's actually sitting on top of the 4x4 there, so it's really not going to drop out once I pull that spring out. So that's going to help me pull this side out. So let's see if we can go ahead and pull this side out. Yeah, it's coming. Oh, it's a little stuck. Try my other hand. Side down. Now let's move over to the other side. A similar situation on this side. The bolt, or I should say the nut, is off. And I just gotta see if I can push it through. Might need to give it a little bit of a tap on the other side, or wrench it a little bit, just to kind of break it up. It wasn't tight. It's gonna be tight to come out. All right, I may be banging on this side, so I need some room. I ended up having to use a little gentle persuasion, but the bolt is out now. So I'm gonna go put the wheel back on here and roll this back out. All right, I guess I'm gonna have to take the wheels off to get it out. I forgot about that. all the suspension has been pulled off the car. Now it's just going to be a little balancing act of lifting the front a little bit, lifting the back a little bit, getting it all high enough to slip the jig underneath it. One of the last things I need to do is pull the shock absorbers out. I really don't want to get speared by those when I'm working underneath the car. So later, probably tomorrow, I'll start pulling those out. All right, it's getting dark now, so I'll probably call it quits for today. All right, so we're back at it again today. I got the shocks off in the rear and we're getting ready to lift the body and put it up on the blocks so I can slide the jig underneath. So as you can see, the shocks are gone. The jig's in position. I'm using the engine hoist to pull up the front end. I'm going to use a floor jack underneath the 4x4 holding up the back end. Hopefully it'll be high enough. If not, we'll have to figure something else out on the fly. Alright, as you can see, I have it mostly set up. I'm good in the front. If I need to come up another inch or two, I can always crank up the crane a little bit, or the engine hoist. In the rear, I'm short about 4.5 inches, even with two 2x8s on the jack. I still need to bring that 4x4 in the back end of the car up another 4 inches or so. So, I'll scramble around and see what I can do to find something to lift that end up another 4 inches. Alright, I didn't want to have to do it, but I wound up moving the engine hoist from the front into the trunk. And what I'm doing back here is I just have it hooked around the frame rails, hoping they don't give out, but they're getting replaced anyway. All I gotta do is come up another 3-4 inches. Alright, we're at the height I need to be. It's all ready to go. Now we're gonna start rolling the jig underneath it. see a pin in one front spring perch. And we'll walk around to the other side. And you can kind of see where that pin is, but there's really not much left of the frame. It's just the bracket on the other side that's holding it in. Okay, so I got the front spring mounts pinned into the jig, and now it's time to start bringing it back down on the ground. Well, there you have it. She's on the jig. Just gonna go do a little cleaning up and try to set it in its place. All right, I think we're done for now. Good news, bad news, I think. The car is mounted. That's the good news. The bad news is, if you look at the car, the jig is level, but the car is pointed significantly upwards in the front. I'm not sure if I missed something. I'll have to check the factory drawings and the other drawings I have. The only thing I could think that may have gone wrong is this mounting area here. Maybe this measurement here should have been up in this corner here, and maybe that's why it looks like it's off. So I'll have to check the drawings, consult some experts, and see where I go from here. Hopefully it's not a setback. All right, everyone, that's probably gonna do it for tonight. As you can see, it's pretty dark and I'm running out of light. So next up for this will be lining up all the panels, making sure all the gaps line up the way they should. Now that the frame, or should say now the body, is kind of stabilized on the jig. So if you want to follow along, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, the like button, leave some comments below if you like, and we'll see you in the next video.